Coming up on 5 Minute News. G7 group of countries agree fixed price for Russian oil. North Korea fires more missiles threatening US against dangerous choices. And 2022 midterms puts the climate crisis on the ticket. It's Friday, November 4. I'm Anthony Davis. The group of 7 rich nations and Australia have agreed to set a fixed price when they finalise a price cap on Russian oil later this month, rather than adopting a floating rate. US officials and G7 countries have been in intense negotiations in recent weeks over the unprecedented plan to put a price cap on seaborne oil shipments, which is scheduled to take effect on December 5th to ensure EU and US sanctions aimed at limiting Moscow's ability to fund its invasion of Ukraine do not throttle the global oil market. The initial price itself has not been set, but it should be in coming weeks. Coalition partners agreed to regularly review the fixed price and revise it as needed. The coalition worried that a floating price pegged below the Brent international benchmark might enable Russian President Vladimir Putin to game the mechanism by reducing supply. Putin could benefit from a floating price system because the price for his country's oil would also rise if Brent spiked due to a cut in oil from Russia, one of the world's largest petroleum producers. The downside of the agreed fixed-price system is that it will require more meetings of the coalition and bureaucracy to review it regularly. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and other G7 officials argue the price cap set to begin on December 5th for crude and February 5th on oil products will squeeze funding to Russia without cutting supply to consumers. Russia has said it will refuse to ship oil to countries that set price caps. North Korea fired multiple missiles into the sea on Thursday, including a possible failed intercontinental ballistic missile, prompting the United States and South Korea to extend air drills that have angered Pyongyang. An initial Japanese government warning that an apparent ICBM had flown over the country triggered alarms for some residents to seek shelter. Tokyo later said the warning about the missile flying over Japan was incorrect. The previous day, North Korea fired a daily record of 23 missiles, including one that landed off the coast of South Korea for the first time and drew swift condemnation from Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo. Since Monday, South Korea and the United States have been conducting one of their largest air exercises ever, with hundreds of South Korean and US warplanes, including F-35 fighters, staging around-the-clock simulated missions. The drills are likely what led North Korea to test a record number of missiles this week, some regional analysts said, but Pyongyang may also be turning up the heat before an expected resumption of nuclear testing for the first time since 2017. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and his South Korean counterpart Lee Jong-sup held a long-scheduled meeting at the Pentagon on Thursday and agreed in a joint statement to seek new measures to demonstrate the alliance's determination and capabilities. At a joint news conference, Austin said he had agreed with Lee to extend the air drills past Friday, when they had been scheduled to end. Lee repeated Seoul's view that North Korea was ready to conduct a nuclear test, but said it was difficult to say when it would carry this out. The countdown to Election Day is now in the single digits, and this year there are a number of major issues on the line. One of those issues could have implications for humanity as a whole: climate change. Clean energy, pollution, and infrastructure upgrades are all important aspects of climate policy that have found their way onto the ballot. Andrew Pershing, Director of Climate Science at the nonpartisan research group Climate Central, said the earlier you act, the more effective the actions are, and the cheaper they are, and the more benefits you get. Henderson said that on its face, climate is a global problem. So typically we think about addressing climate at a major scale. The question then becomes, what can localities do that makes a significant impact? Few local and state measures on the ballot this year aimed at tackling climate and environmental issues. For Henderson, only two stood out: California's Proposition 30 and New York's Clean Water, Clean Air and Green Jobs Environmental Act. A recent report by Bloomberg showed that the nation's most populated state, California, is on track to become the fourth largest economy in the world. That growth makes Proposition 30 all the more significant. If passed, the measure would increase tax on personal income above $2 million by 1.75%. According to the Legislative Analyst's Office, a nonpartisan fiscal and policy advisor, the tax would be implemented in January and run through January 2043. But if the state manages to drop its statewide greenhouse gas emissions below a certain threshold earlier than that, the tax could be lowered sooner. You can subscribe to 5-Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5-Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5-Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.